My name is Tim Randazzo, 36 years old, live in Rio Linda, California. How I got into drifting was my friend Scott Rutledge from Highlands High School took me out to Highway 49. The first time he kicked it out, dude, his rear tire was like in the dirt off the edge of the road, and he was just questioning if we just made contact with the mountain. It was like the most insane adrenaline rush I had ever felt, and I instantly was just like, I want to do this. I, done some handbrake pulls in one of my first cars in a parking lot, just kind of little 180, never drifting anything. I'd always play racing games growing up, and you slide around stuff in there, but it was never like piecing it all together. Watched Initial D growing up, kind of got me more into the JDM aspect of things, because when I was 16, I got gifted a Mustang from my grandpa in 1965 coupe. So I was always like a V8 kind of, I was going to drag race or, do pulls on the street kind of guy. So to switch over to drifting and little Japanese cars was cool. Like, I always appreciated them. One of the first cars I ever bought was a 95 Integra. So I still kind of have that ricer in me in a sense. Been drifting since 2010. Early on, I started with a coupe that was a shell. I got an engine for, pulled it all together myself in my backyard. Had to swap the head instantly because all the valves are stuck on like the exhaust side up against the head. I don't know what happened to that engine, but so that was my first time swapping a head in the car. First time I took it out drifting, rod knock, so had to go get another engine for it. But I eventually traded that car for a automatic 95 S14. AC worked, passed smog. Ended up trading it to a girl from this crew, Sliding Sexy. Her name's Sabrina. Traded her that stock S14 for RB20 5-seed S14. It was sick. I was just in love with RBs after that. Like, it sounded so good. But it had the OEM turbo, and they have like a ceramic wheel on the exhaust, and it just shattered and ended up, I guess, bits got in the engine, low compression. And then from there, I got 2 RB25 blocks. After the RB20 blew up, I ended up getting 2 RB25 Neo blocks that apparently one had a bad bottom end, one had a bad head. Put them together, got that running, ended up melting the piston on that because there was some electrical issue where it just never quite ran right. From there, I got a stock RB25 Series 2, and that thing was great. Just up the boost a little bit on the 25, and it was years I got out of that thing until I put a top mount setup on it and a wastegate line came off at Sonoma on Summer Jam. Drove home with cracked ringlands from Sonoma back to Sac. Anytime I hit boost, it started getting wonky, but yeah, I just stuck with RBs since then. Like, I've rebuilt this engine twice, so it's definitely a labor of passion, but I haven't had any of the typical like RB problems people claim they have with their engines. Recently got it on the dyno at the beginning of the year. I started off with my own tune, and I made 350 to the wheel and left there with 370 at the wheel, so wasn't really too much more to get out of it then. But I just changed the exhaust housing on the turbo because I had a small exhaust housing to help it spool up quick, which is nice when you're on and off gas drifting or chasing a slower car. But I think it was just too restrictive. So just got a bigger exhaust housing on this, and hopefully I can hit the dyno with Stephen Campoy at Campoy Racing before this next event with Club Rowdy, but we'll see if that works out. So this S14 chassis, I've been drifting for the past 6 years. Prior to that, my other S14 I had for 8 years. It finally just got hit so many times in quarter panels, and then the final straw was someone threw a boulder through the rear window in front of the house I was living at the time. And I said, I had this shell sitting in the driveway that I got for cheap, and I was like, I'm not gonna redo all this crap on this car, because at the time they weren't, you know, you weren't making money off of selling a 240 really, so it wasn't worth trying to refresh the whole chassis. So I just moved everything over to this one, but it was still a white S14. Everyone assumed it was the same car I had for, 12 years, but it essentially was. The whole front end and the doors even were off of the old car. The other chassis had nothing on it. So after my next event with Club Rowdy in Oregon, I plan to do a full refresh on the car. I have other doors for it. I've had a wide body kit sitting for 4 years for the car. I've had paint sitting for the car for 3 years in a room in my house. So hopefully try and make Winter Jam, which I haven't driven at in years, with the car fully refreshed. So trying to see about maybe getting, some sponsors just for like a livery for it. Having it painted all one color is still going to be phenomenal versus how the car overall has looked for a long time. Because it's always, previous to getting hit more recently, the past year and a half, it was always fairly clean and, looked good, kept it all in one piece. But to come out with, not a white car, something with a flashier color is going to be exciting, just because I've always been like the guy that's just thought, driving and style of driving was more really what I focused on, because that's all that really mattered. Having the car look pretty doesn't get me any more seat time, but to try and make it more appealing for cameras and videos, and it'll be exciting to see it in a different light. So that'd be cool to see the new version of the car. For me, just driving the car and drifting and just the feeling of being sideways, just on limiter, just shredding, it's a great escape. It's like my therapy. Like, that's the biggest thing I get out of drifting, is just not having to think about anything else but just being there in the moment.